Well, hello, here we are again. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. I don't know if anybody will be jumping on live or not tonight, but I just wanted to get this going tonight and we're just going to hit the ground running. So I do not want to take up a ton of your time with this video. The last one that we did lasted just about an hour and was full of tons of information. So this one is going to be a little bit more fun and it's going to include some topics that I personally enjoy talking about a little bit more. So before we get into our topic tonight, which is I'm homeschooling and now what? I just wanted to do a quick review of the law in Missouri. So the last video I did, we covered the law. I kind of went through it quickly because there's a lot to discuss. It's not super complicated, but there is a lot there to understand. So I just want to do a quick review of that, and then we will jump right into the fun part of tonight. So in Missouri, if you are going to homeschool next year, this coming school year, and your children were in public school or private school last year, you do have to officially withdraw them from school. So you do have to give written notice to your school. You have to write a letter to your school letting them know that you are withdrawing your child from school and that you will be homeschooling. Now, this does not apply if you're doing the school's own virtual or home learning program. If you're doing that, you're not actually homeschooling. You will be at home, but you're still under the umbrella of whatever school your child is enrolled at. So you're still officially enrolled with them if you're doing that. That's not homeschooling. So that's something different. This is, you want to pick your own curriculum, you want to make your own plan, you don't want to do their thing, you have to officially withdraw your child. On my website, which I will reference throughout this video, there is some resources for that. I do have some websites that I have listed there that you can go to for sample letters of withdrawal and a lot of other helpful things as far as the law in Missouri is concerned. The next thing that we need to discuss about the law is what are you actually required to do to homeschool in Missouri? And Missouri actually is a very homeschool friendly state, so there's not a ton of things that we are required to do, but there are some, and so we still have to follow those things that the state has determined we have to follow for homeschooling. So those things are, you have to keep track of your instructional hours. In Missouri, you have to teach 1,000 hours. You have a full 12 months to do that. So the school year in Missouri starts July 1st and it ends June 30th of the following year. So you have a full 12 months to meet your instructional hours, but you do have to meet them. So you need 1,000 hours. 600 of those have to be in the core subjects. What are the core subjects? Well, your core subjects are math, language arts, history, science, and I think I'm missing one. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's it. Reading, math, language arts, social studies, and science. Sometimes people lump reading in with language arts. Sometimes people separate it out. So it's kind of all combined into one thing. But those are your core subjects. You need 600 hours of those. 400 of your 600 hours must be completed at your regular school location. So wherever you regularly do school, that's your regular location. So 400 of your hours have to be completed there. This is why I tell you, you have to have a plan book. You need to make a plan. Everyone should have a plan book. Even if it's super simple, I keep mine as simple as possible because I don't really have time to make it super complex. So it can be really simple. On Monday, we're doing lesson 2 in our science book for this child. Okay, that's your science lesson. That's all you have to write down. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be a page-long thing about the entire lesson and what you're teaching and how you're teaching it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you do have to keep a record. So please keep good records. This is especially important if you intend on putting your child back in public school next year, or private school. They're going to want very specific and detailed records of what you did in school so that they can put your child in the proper grade and the right classes next year. So you want what they do this year in school to count if you re-enroll them back in public school or private school next year. You don't want them to have to take a class over again. And so the best way for the school to know that you taught them what you said you taught them is for you to keep good records. So please keep good records, record your hours, record your lessons. Also, it's a great idea to keep track of what curriculum you're using. I keep a list of the curriculum that I'm using, and that's in my plan book. Every year for each child, I write down the name of the book, the publisher, for each subject, for each curriculum that we use. So, let's see. So, 600 of your 1,000 hours has to be the core subjects. 400 of the other 1,000 hours can be whatever subjects you determine you want for your child. Is your child an elite athlete in some sport? Great. What their training involves, that can count towards those 400 hours. Do they take an art class? Great. That can count towards your other 400 hours. Non-core is any other subject that you determine is part of your child's education. My son does archery. That's part of his educational program. We count it as a PE credit. It's physical education. He goes to a club. He learns how to handle his bow and safety and all the other things that he needs to know to be able to pursue that. Are your children learning to drive? That's driver's education. So you need to count those hours of instruction and what you're teaching them and what book or curriculum you're using to do so. And then that counts towards your 400 hours. Okay. You cannot double dip on hours. Okay, what does this mean? Double dipping on hours is, let's say I am taking my kids to the park and we are doing an obstacle course and I think, you know what, that would be PE. I'm going to count that as a PE credit or PE hour on my plan book. But then while we're there, the kids find caterpillars. Oh, well, it's science. I can't call it PE and science, okay? I have to choose. So it can be a PE, it can count towards PE, or it can count towards science. So you just have to choose where it fits best in your educational plan. And this is just a judgment call that you have to make. We've done this. The example I gave the last time in the last video was one year we were studying botany and science, and our family does a lot of family hiking. On this particular hike, it was morel season. A morel is a kind of mushroom. And so we had studied mushrooms in our science book and other kinds of fungi. And on this particular hike, we were specifically looking for morels. So in that specific instance, I counted the hike as towards our science hours that we needed, and not towards PE, because it fit with what we were doing in science. So I couldn't count it for both, but I was able to choose where I felt it fit best in our education for my children. So that is part of it too. Compulsory school age in Missouri is from age 7 to age 16. If your child will not be turning 7 years old during the school year, you do not have to count hours. Yay! Congratulations! You just saved yourself a ton of time. You should still keep track of your lessons and your curriculum that you use. This will be important for the future if you enroll them in school, or even if you don't. It's just a good record to have. Something that I did when my kids were younger, the year before they turned 7 is the year that I would start counting my hours. Now, I did this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was to get in the habit of doing it. I knew it didn't count. I knew I didn't have to, but it's a good habit to start doing. So Even if your child is only going to be 6 during the school year, if you want to count hours, just to give you an idea what the time frame looks like. How much time does it actually take you to do a lesson? How much time are you actually spending teaching your kids? This is a great thing to do. It's not that difficult. It doesn't take that much time to do. So if you want to start counting hours before they're 7, you can, but you don't have to. Okay, another thing about Missouri is while you have to keep all these records, you don't have to turn them in to anyone. Nobody needs these records. So the school district does not need them. You don't have to turn it into the state. They're there for your personal record keeping. And, if there was some sort of an issue where somebody would say, well, you're not really teaching your kids, and they made a complaint, then you would have record that you were and that you were following Missouri homeschool law. But as a general practice, you do not have to turn them in anywhere. You also do not have to do any standardized testing with your children in Missouri. I recommend doing it. It's a good way to have kind of a gauge of what your kids have learned from year to year. The best thing that you need to remember about standardized testing is that every year you are measuring your child's progress against their previous year. So that is a record for you to know, am I teaching them well? Are they making progress, and are they learning every year? So you want to keep those records, and it's a comparison point for you to know from year to year how your kids are doing in school and if they are learning. Okay, so that is the quick review of the homeschool law. For more specifics, you can look at hslda.org, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They have state laws for every state in the nation on homeschooling. If you have a question about what your specific laws are for your state, I would encourage you to look at HSLDA. And they are great at breaking that down for each state so that everybody knows what they are required to do for their specific state. It is different in every state, so there's not a standardized thing across the board. And so if you're not in Missouri, or if you want more details about the Missouri law, because that was just a real quick overview that I just gave you, it was not everything by any means, but it's what you need to know to get started. So go to HSLDA and make yourself familiar with what the law actually says. I think it's if you go there and look for it, you can find the actual law, how it's written out, and you should be familiar with the actual law if you will be homeschooling. So, okay, now for the fun stuff. So, I know a lot of people this year are going to be homeschooling because they feel like they have to. It wasn't something that you wanted to do. It wasn't something that you ever planned on doing, but because of the current environment that we're in, or maybe a decision that your public school has made, you've decided, you know what? I'll just keep my kids home and we'll just make it work. We'll do it at home. So, congratulations and welcome to the wild and wacky world of homeschooling. I have been doing this for 15 years, and I can tell you without a doubt, best decision I've ever made is to stay home with my kids and teach them at home. That does not mean it's always been easy. In fact, it's quite challenging, and there are definitely difficult days. So I don't want you to think that I'm just oblivious to the fact that it might be hard. It's going to be hard. You'll have hard days, but it's totally worth it. So something that I put on my Facebook this week is that one of my tips and tricks is to have a soft open. So this is something that I started doing several years ago, and it has really helped us to get kind of in the groove of homeschooling, and it prevents a lot of attitude at the beginning of the school year. So after a summer of fun and having kind of a loose routine, and the kids being able to play and wake up whenever and play games or go outside, and pretty much just having freedom to do anything that they desire, it can be kind of a shock to their system to all of a sudden one day wake up and say, okay kids, today we're going to sit in a desk all day long and learn. That's really hard for kids to adjust to. So something that I started doing a few years ago is a few days to maybe even the week before I want to start our full curriculum, I'll pick one or two subjects, and we'll start there. And we'll just do those subjects for those couple of days, and it takes an hour or two. And it's a good kind of way to break the ice and get the kids kind of back in the routine of learning and being in a little bit more of a structured kind of day. I am very strategic about which subjects I pick. Sometimes I can't be strategic. Sometimes we have to get things accomplished in a subject because we need to get a head start on something before a co-op class starts, or I want to figure out where they're at in a subject before we really jump into it. But usually I try to pick subjects that are enjoyable for my kids. So this week, what I did with my elementary school kids is we started reading the first lesson in our history book and our science book. And then we had to do a placement test for math, which was less enjoyable for them, but necessary because we're switching to a different math curriculum this year. And a placement test is really valuable to figure out where they need to start. And so they don't like tests and they don't like math, but I kind of tried to make it a little bit easier on them by explaining to them that this was really important because I don't want them to start in a lesson that's too hard, but I also don't want them to have to start somewhere doing things that they already know and it's going to be boring. So for them, that's just really helpful for them to know this is really for your benefit. It's going to make things better as the year goes along. And so they didn't necessarily enjoy it, but that's part of life with homeschooling. So, okay, curriculum. One thing that is important to note with homeschooling is that it's never too late to start homeschooling your kids. So yay, you're not too late. You still have time and you still can make this decision to homeschool your kids if that's what you feel like you need to do. You don't have to follow the school's schedule. So if they started already or if they're starting next week and you're kind of panicking because you don't have curriculum yet, not a big deal. You're fine. Some schools don't start till after Labor Day, so it's really okay. And remember, you still have 12 months to complete your school curriculum. So you have until the end of June next year. So it's plenty of time. You're still totally good to pick your curriculum and order it. That being said, I want to share some of my favorite places to purchase curriculum and what you can do in the meantime while you're waiting for your curriculum to arrive. So if you have not ordered curriculum yet and you are in panic mode because you need curriculum but you want to start schooling, something easy that you can do is you can pick up those little workbooks. You can get them anywhere, really. Just get the workbook for your kid's grade, and it's probably going to be a lot of review. There's not going to be a lot of new information there, most likely, but it's a good way to kind of get them in the habit of being ready for school. So I have picked these up at the dollar store, at Target, at Walmart. Costco sometimes has them. I'm sure you've seen them. They're, sometimes they're really big, like really thick workbooks, and they've got, get ready for a third grade or whatever, and it has all the subjects in it. Those are great. Or sometimes the dollar store has littler ones that are, maybe just like just a reading kind of workbook, and there's just stories with some comprehension questions or something. Any of those are fine to do in the waiting period while you're waiting for your curriculum to arrive. So even if you haven't ordered it yet, you can get those workbooks anywhere and you can hit the ground running and get your kids ready to go. The library is also a great resource. If you just want to start with some kind of a structure for your kids, I highly recommend getting a book that you can do as a read aloud. Kids love being read to. Even my 6th grader still enjoys it when we do read alouds. So find a good book or a good book series from the library and start doing a family read aloud. That's a great way to kind of get into the school kind of mode and be ready to go when your curriculum does actually arrive. Okay, so I'm going to have a resource on my website. After this video, we'll put it up there with some links to some of these things that I'm going to be talking about next. Over the years, I have just found that there are some places that are my favorites to get curriculum and resources. So I'm just going to share those with you real quick, and then they'll be at my website with clickable links where you can go and look up these resources. So one of my favorite places to buy curriculum is a website called Rainbow Resource. And Rainbow has just about everything that you could need for curriculum. Not everything. There's a few things I have to get elsewhere that we use, but Rainbow is a great resource for curriculum. They sell even curriculum that you can't find anywhere else. There's a curriculum manufacturer called Rod and Staff, or publisher called Rod and Staff. They are a Mennonite company. They don't have their own website, but they sell their curriculum through Rainbow. So even those kinds of hard to find things you can find at Rainbow. Also, another great thing about Rainbow is that because they're a third-party platform, you can find reviews on curriculum at Rainbow and know that it's unbiased. These are reviews written by other homeschoolers that have used the curriculum, and so it's not like you're going to the publisher's website and finding only the glowing reviews of that curriculum. These are people that have used the curriculum, have purchased from Rainbow, and then have written a review. So you're getting unbiased information from actual homeschoolers. So I love that about it. So even if you don't order from them, it's a great place to go and read reviews. If you are looking at a couple different kinds of curriculum and you're not sure which one you like best, go there and look it up and see if they have it and see if they have reviews on it. The next source that I really like to buy curriculum from is a website called Masterbooks. Masterbooks is similar to Rainbow, but they have a lot less selection. So they have some specific curriculums that are Masterbooks is the publisher behind it, and so you can't buy it at Rainbow, and so that's why I buy it from Masterbooks. There is a line of curriculum that we've used that I buy from Masterbooks that we've used for the last couple of years for American history. It's called America's Story by Angela Odell, and excellent history, American history curriculum for elementary school age children. This is a multi-age curriculum. I've used it the last 3 years. They have 3 volumes of America's Story, and it covers American history from the beginning of our nation all the way up to the present time. I used this last year. My boys were 5th grade and 3rd grade, and both enjoyed it. We used it together. The nice thing about this curriculum is when you have multiple kids that are multiple different ages, it can be really hard to fit all the subjects in a single day, especially if your kids are younger and you need a lot of teacher involvement in their lessons. So I try to do things with my elementary school aged kids that are multi-age for history and for science and Bible. We combine them together into one class, and then their assignments are usually altered a little bit, where the older student is going to have a little bit more difficult assignment to complete than the younger student. So you can adjust the assignments for the ages of your kids. So I love that curriculum. There also is one called World's Story, also by Angela Odell, which is for middle school and high school. We have not used that one, but it's the same kind of a style of curriculum, and I plan on using it in the future because I've just been so happy with America's Story. A nice thing too about Masterbooks is they have curriculum packages. So this is something where you can select the grade of your student, and they have compiled curriculum packages for that grade. So you can look at what they recommend and what they've kind of bundled together to complete like an entire year for each grade, which is great for people that are new and maybe don't know what they think would be best for their kids, and they're not sure what to try and they're kind of overwhelmed. This is a great starting point to kind of just see like what do they recommend. And then if it looks like it'd be a good fit for your family, great, you've got a package and you're ready to go. If not, then you can pick and choose things that they recommend for each grade and decide what works best for your family. Okay. So that's one style. That's generally how I do homeschool, just because I have a lot of kids. And so that's easier for me. But a lot of people are very comfortable and want to do a traditional approach to school. So Bob Jones Homeschool and Abeka are also curriculums that we've used. This is the typical curriculum that you will find in a Christian private school. This is a textbook and workbook approach to curriculum. It's very straightforward. Most of the time, the lessons are scripted. So all you do is open the teacher guide and just go. You just read it to your kids. You read the lesson to them. You help them with their worksheet, and it's pretty straightforward. This is great if you only have a few kids, like one or two, and you want them, each doing their own work at a desk, and they don't mind having worksheets. This is not the greatest approach if your kids are very hands-on type learners, or if they are very active type learners. So you just have to kind of know what your kids need. So Bob Jones and Abeka I have used in the past for various subjects. It's great curriculum, well written, highly respected in private school circles, because that's what they use in a lot of private schools. So if you've pulled your kids out of a private school and you intend on putting them back in a private school in the future, this would be a great option for you. They also have DVD options where you can do the DVD where the teacher teaches the lesson, and all you have to really do is kind of monitor the kids, make sure that they're getting their work done. Bob Jones, I think, also has like an online academy where you can basically like enroll your kids in their academy, and they do essentially virtual school through Bob Jones. But it's a Christian curriculum, so it's written with a biblical worldview, and I know that that's important to some people. Okay. Now I want to talk about a couple of specific curriculums that we've used, just to kind of give a little bit of maybe suggestions for people that are considering various curriculums and want some ideas. So a reading curriculum that I have used that I love is called All About Reading. This is a curriculum that starts with kindergarten and goes up to 4th grade. It is a phonics-based reading program, super simple to use. You open the teacher guide, and it pretty much tells you what to do, what to say to your kids. The curriculum is based on phonics and phonics rules. So you will teach your kids one lesson has a phonics rule, or you're teaching them a certain sound, and then they have word cards that they are working on throughout the week, that they are working on learning those words, learning how to read those words. They have activities that go with that to help reinforce that concept. And then the following lesson after that, there is a story that is part of a reader that comes with the curriculum that reinforces that concept even more. So the nice thing about this curriculum is that from the very beginning, your child will be reading stories. Even in the kindergarten book, it starts right off the bat. They're learning sounds, and then immediately they're applying that to actual reading, which for kids is great. They love the instant gratification of being able to take what they've learned and actually read a real story with it. So that's great reinforcement for them. My kids love that each level comes with what is the word? It has like a chart, like a progress chart, and stickers. So there's like specific stickers for each like theme of the level, which you would think is not a big deal, but I'm telling you, it's a big deal. Like my kids, even my boys are like, I want to put my sticker on. I'm like, okay. So last year, my third graders, the theme was like a treasure chest or whatever. And so his progress chart was like a treasure map, and each sticker was like a little jewel. And I mean, he's a boy. You would think that a boy doesn't really care about little jewel stickers, but I'm telling you what, he was super excited each lesson to be able to put his little jewel sticker on his chart that he had finished that lesson. So this is also great for them because they are able to see their progress. And once we got near the end of the school year, it's so exciting because they can look and they can see, like they can count, like I only have 5 more lessons or whatever, and then we're done. Like I've done the whole book. So that's great for them. They love it. It's a great reinforcement. This curriculum is a little bit pricey to get started with because there is a lot of materials that you need to be able to teach the whole curriculum. But once you purchase them that initial year, you don't have to do it every year. So there's letter tiles that come with the curriculum that are magnetic. And you really only need to purchase one set of those. And there's like a box that you can purchase to put your cards in, all your word cards, which seems like an unnecessary expense, but it's really helpful to have the box because it holds all the cards nicely. It's the right size for them, and it keeps them just in order, how makes it easier for you to find them when you need them. So that I recommend kind of splurging on the box and getting it. I've tried a few other methods to keep my cards organized, and the box really is the best way. So All About Reading is great. I've also had kids that have had reading struggles, that have struggled with like dyslexia type struggles, and All About Reading is a great program for even struggling readers. So this is child paced. So you don't have to, a lesson can take as long as it needs to, or you can fly through it if your child understands. And so even a child that's struggling, a struggling learner, this is a great program because you just can go slower with them and take the time that they need until they fully understand, and then you can move on. And they still are getting the reinforcement of reading the stories and finishing the lessons and putting their sticker on. This program has been a huge lifesaver for me for teaching reading to my kids. They also have All About Spelling, which is a similar concept to All About Reading, except that it's spelling. The All About Spelling curriculum goes from, it's leveled, so level 1 through 7, and you just need to pick what level you think your kid would fit best at. I don't know if they have a placement test or not for All About Spelling, but the website for both of those will be on the document at my website. Okay. Another curriculum that I love, let's talk about math. I just have a couple more and then we're going to be just about done here. So math, we've used a lot of things for math over the years, and math is not my favorite subject. I'm going to be real honest with you. I actually grew up going to public school and always just felt like I am just dumb. Like I don't understand math, and I'm just too dumb to understand math. That all changed when we started using Math-U-See. Math-U-See is a great math program. It's a little bit different approach than a lot of math curriculums because they are a mastery approach curriculum. So what that means is in Math-U-See, you focus on one specific math concept and you do not move on until you have mastered it. So in the early years, that looks like spending a whole entire school year on addition. I know that sounds crazy, but addition is a major foundation that kids need before they can move on. And so once you've mastered addition, then you're ready to understand subtraction. Because of the way that math builds on itself, it's really important to have a solid foundation. You don't want to just keep adding new information on new information when you haven't understood the previous information. And I think that was the problem with my education, was that I never really understood math, and then it just got more and more complicated, and it was really hard to add new information when I hadn't really mastered the previous concept. So Math UC really builds on that idea of you really have to understand one thing before you add something else. Another great thing about Math UC is that they really take a lot of time to help kids understand place value, which is a foundational concept in math, and kids really need to have a good, solid understanding of place value before they can move on to other math concepts. And so Math UC makes sure that that is one of the foundational things that's taught. The nice thing about Math UC is that it is a DVD-based curriculum. So each week your child will watch a DVD lesson, and then they will spend the rest of the week with worksheets where they will be reinforcing the concept that was learned through the DVD lesson. So it's one basic concept each week that they're learning, and then that's reinforced throughout the week with worksheets. And there is built-in review, so it's not like there's never review, but the difference between a mastery program versus what most math curriculums are, which is called Spiral, is that there's more practice on the new concept than there is on review. A lot of math curriculums will just throw tons of review at your kids, and they might have like 2 or 3 problems that relate to the new concept. This does not really give them a lot of time to practice the new concept when they've first been exposed to it. And the idea is that they'll just get exposed to it again and again through review in the follow-up lessons. But so Math UC has a little bit of a different approach. For me and for my kids, I have really appreciated this approach and have felt that it really is good, especially in the early years. So starts with kindergarten, goes all the way through high school, and we have liked it and have benefited from it. There are math things that I understand now because I taught my kids with Math UC. So there's my shameless plug for Math UC. Thanks, Math UC, because you taught me how to do math. Okay. When my kids get older, though, I like a math curriculum that does a lot of the work for me. The last few years, we have discovered Teaching Textbooks, which is an online math curriculum where your child will watch the lesson on the computer. They'll do their assignment on the computer. It grades it for them. So there's instant feedback. They know immediately if they got the answer right or wrong, and then they can fix it or ask for a hint. Their assignment is graded, and so you don't really have to do a whole lot. It's pretty much teacher hands-off. You are there to help them, obviously, if they have questions that the video cannot answer. But as far as the time required from you, it's extremely minimal. And so that is just really helpful as a mom when you've got so many other plates that you're spinning to not have to grade everyone's math homework every day, which can be very tedious and time consuming, especially as they get older. So, okay, that's math and reading. I'm almost done. Last thing I want to share is my favorite website to get school supplies and like arts and crafts supplies. This is a site that I discovered many years ago when I was teaching in a preschool, actually, and they cater more to like preschools or like school classrooms. So a lot of the things are is bulk buying, but totally worth it, especially if you have a lot of children like I do. So this site is Discount School Supply, and is a great place to get things like bulk construction paper, your crayons, markers, that kinds of thing, so that you make sure that you have what you need in your house ready to go. One of my favorite things from Discount School Supply is their finger paint. They have a brand of finger paint that I haven't found anywhere else. It's Colorations. It's called BioColor, and it is fabulous finger paint. This finger paint does not stink, and it does not crack. Once it dries, it remains smooth and pliable. So we don't keep all of our kids' artwork. Like, nobody has space for that. But sometimes you want to keep some of the things that they've done. And when it comes to finger paint, It's on that big finger paint paper. You want to fold it up and put it away in a file. Most finger paint will crack and come off the paper, and it's like, why did I even save that? This finger paint does not do that. It dries kind of shiny. We've actually even used it as like wrapping paper. So I've had my kids kind of decorate a finger paint paper, and then we've saved it and we've used that paper as wrapping paper. So you can totally bend it and fold it, and the paint stays pliable. And so that is great. I also love to make sure that we just have construction paper and things like that on hand, because the worst thing is being in the middle of a lesson and realizing that you need brown construction paper and you don't have any in your house. So Discount School Supply is a great place to make sure that you keep those kinds of things in stock in your house. They do have some educational games and other school kinds of like supplemental supplies that you might need for your homeschool. And so that is also just a great resource that I keep in my back pocket. And this went longer than I expected, but if anybody has any questions, I will pause for a moment and drink my coffee, and then if not, we will be done. All right, well, those are my tips and tricks for a great homeschool year. You can do this. And if you have any other questions for me, just send me a Facebook message or send me an email. This document with these resources and websites will be on my website, themelissajacobs.com, after we post this video. Have a great night, guys, and have a fantastic homeschool year.